Hi, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Meant for More mindset with me, Yar, and
Back again, guys. Dion here.
so today we're going to be talking about black and white thinking. So, what black and white thinking is when you think things either have to be one way or the other. So there's no in between, there's no grey. So, for example, me for a long time in my life, I used to think that things were either right or wrong. And that showed up a lot when it came to my relationships with people. So it would either they were right or I was wrong or vice versa. And so it didn't really allow me to have grace and compassion for myself or anybody else either. And as a result of that, I kind of went around expecting me from other people. So expecting, and by that I mean expecting the way I showed up in relationships to be the way other people showed up in relationships. And when they didn't do that, automatically that made them wrong. And so the relationships were held to a really kind of a ridiculous standard, really, because it wasn't, maybe in the short term, it would have been achievable, like to have a relationship like that. But in the long term, I don't think it was. Yeah, I don't even know. So yeah, I was a hot mess. Um, and so what I really have learned in the last year is like, so I have a friend and she always challenges me, like, how do you know that? So for example, I'll be like, well, I know this situation is like this because of this, this and this and this. And she'll be like, well, how do you know that? And I'm like, well, I don't really. And then you realize it's just an assumption that you're making. And because I've realized this assumption that I'm making, it allows me grace. It allows me grace for myself and for other people. And I think that's the most important thing as well, having grace for yourself. Because in having grace for myself, what I've learned is that I'm kinder to myself. And then also as a result, kinder to other people. So even, so I'll tell you actually a funny story. So the other day, I went and got, I hadn't eaten all day. It'd been a really long day. I went and got my hair did. And then when I came back from getting my hair did, on the way back, I was like, I'm going to have a pizza. It's the end of September. I'll start fresh in October. And so I was like, I'll start fresh in October. And then, so I was like, okay, I'm going to get pizza. And then when I was in so I walk into Domino's. As I walk into Domino's, I order my pizza. There's a guy standing outside, like stretching, and he appears to be homeless. Even though he ended up telling me he wasn't homeless. I think he had mental health issues. And so I have a moment of, should I be kind and should I offer to buy him a pizza? So I go outside and offer to buy him a pizza. And then when I go outside and offer to buy him a pizza, he says to me, yeah, that would be I'm not a beggar or anything, but anything you could afford would be nice. And so in my mind, I'm like thinking, okay, cool. You tell me what you want. And then I'm going to go inside and order it. And then that way it will come close to the time mine comes. And then I can give you your pizza and then take mine home. So as I start talking to him, and this should have been my first sign, but it was not. As I start talking to him, he says to me, what did he say to me? He says to me, he says, don't interrupt me. It's like, wow. And he goes, just because you think you're an angel doesn't mean that you are, and or doesn't give you the right to and just because you think you're helping me doesn't mean that you can just cut me off when I'm talking to you. Don't interrupt me. And I was like, okay. So I listened to him, and in the grand scheme of things, it felt like a long time. Maybe because I was hungry, but in the grand scheme of things, probably about no more than 5 minutes of him talking. So at the end of the 5 minutes of him talking, I said, what would you like on your pizza? He said, oh, anything really, as long as it's not anything hot, so like jalapenos, anything like that. I said, okay, cool. Went and ordered him a pepperoni pizza. Cool. So he comes inside now, wants to sit and chat with me as we're waiting for this pizza. Cool, fine, fair enough. And I kind of let him talk because I think that's what he wants more than anything else, is just have a conversation. And so then his pizza, so we're in the middle of talking, and I want you to bear this in mind. We're in the middle of talking. As we're in the middle of talking, I say, oh, hold on a minute, I've got to go and get your pizza, because mine had already come at that point. And so I'll go get the pizza, hand it to him. And then he then comes back and he's very, very grateful, and he wants to start talking to me again. Now at this point, you have to remember I've been in all day. It's like 8 o'clock at night now. I think I've had a little bit of something to eat. I've had 2 croissants the whole day. That's all I've had to eat.
Wow.
And so I'm like, I just want to go home and eat my pizza, you know. And so I say to him, I'm really, really sorry, but I've got to go home now. And he goes, just because you've done something nice for me doesn't mean that you can, what did he say? Doesn't mean that you can do this. You know, doesn't mean that just because you've done something nice doesn't mean I'm not allowed to finish what I'm saying. And I was like, okay, but what I want you to bear in mind is that when I was going to get the pizza, my guy had no trouble with me stopping him to go and get the pizza to hand to him. I said, and so then he basically lambasts me and tells me about myself, and I just like, okay, cool. I'll see you. To the point where he said some unfavorable things about me. I just said, okay. So then I get up and I go away, and then I turn, and as I'm walking down, I get to the traffic lights, turn back round. My guy's outside Domino's eating his pizza. I'm like, okay, what I meant to do there, I did. And then as I was walking home, I kind of get the anger. I guess my ego starts to come up, and it says, like almost like. So the first thing is, oh no, don't be angry. And the next thing is, no, be angry because he said this or he did that, and how dare he talk to me like that. And so I allowed myself to have the moment. I allowed myself to feel my feelings, and then I thought about it afterwards, and I just thought, because also in that moment I said to myself, never again am I doing this, never again. And then I thought about it afterwards, and I thought, I will probably do it again, but I'll probably put boundaries in place next time, like, oh, the pizza, and in a really nice way, just say, oh, the pizza's coming, so when the pizza's come, I'm really hungry, so I'm gonna take the pizza and I'm gonna go, so I'm gonna have to leave you at that point. And even then, if the same reaction happens, then at least I know I've told you what my boundaries were, and now I'm out. But what the lesson was, so before, what like I said, what I would have done is I'm never doing that again, because you've put me in a situation where you've made me feel, I feel like you're being ungrateful, which has made me feel like almost like I'm not, like, it goes back to the whole worthiness kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And like I'm trying to do a good deed, and so then it becomes, who's the good deed for, really, me or you? And so, but with the allowing myself to kind of be in the space of grey, I allowed myself to feel all my feelings, and all the feelings were first and foremost, that I was a bit off that he spoke to me the way he spoke to me, even though I did a nice gesture for him. But then the second thing was that I still did the nice gesture, and that was what it was really about. But when you operate in a space of black and white thinking, you never allow yourself to be in that space of that person's wrong, or I'm wrong, or I'm wrong. Well, basically 2 things can be right at the same time, or wrong at the same time, however you want to look at it. And so, he actually made a very valid point. His valid point was, I want you to hear me. And even though you've brought me this pizza, I still want you to hear me, which is a very valid point. But my also very valid point was, I've brought you this pizza, I've done something nice, and I'm hungry. So I now want to respect myself and my feelings and go home and eat my pizza. And so it's that kind of thing of where just really learning to respect myself, and in learning to respect myself, it's made me respect others a lot more too. And so it's been a journey of doing that. And so that's what I try to do for others now, just kind of hold that space for them. And if I even thinking now as I'm talking to you, if I look at that situation, I think about what didn't I do, or what I may have done in that, is that I didn't really hold space for him. But also the reason why I didn't hold space for him was because I wanted to hold space for myself. So again, it's not right, it's not wrong, it just is. And I think that's the beauty of it all. It's not right, it's not wrong, it just is. So I've spoken a lot now. So what are your thoughts?
When I think black and white thinking, I do think like in psychology we call it splitting, where you've got 2 completely different aspects, and it's either this or that, and there's no in between. So I see it a lot in the counselling room of people assuming, and a lot of the time it is just assumption that this is the way I see this, and this is the way it should be. So this is the right way and this is the wrong way.
Mhm.
But it doesn't leave, as you said, it doesn't leave any room for grey. And it also doesn't leave room for someone else's moral like stance on something. So just because something to you is right, if they've grown up in a completely different way, you're not taking into account any differences. You're just taking into account, I think this, so everyone else should think this.
Yes.
And if we do that in this world, everything's going to be the same. Everyone's going to be living in the same type of house, same kind of, there's no room for difference. I think it kind of puts us in a box if we do think in a black and white thinking way. So for me personally, I used to think like that as well. I used to think, oh my God, if I do this for someone, that means I'm doing the right thing. So they should appreciate it. And so a lot of the time people just they don't. They take it for granted. They accept it, say thank you, and that's it. But you are holding it in such a high regard, thinking, oh, I've done this, so this person will definitely kind of repay me back in a similar way. And it's like, yeah, it never comes. So it's kind of like, is there a bit of manipulation in it as well, where because you're thinking a certain way and you want someone to think the way you want them to think, you want the outcome to be favorable for you. But as we said last week, like there's always that idea of, I think differently to other people. So if I think differently, there's going to be differences in that. And the way I'm thinking is the right way for me is how someone else is thinking their way is the right way for them. So if we keep on fighting to say someone's right, someone's wrong, there's no room for compromise if you are both thinking in black and white thinking. So there's no room for even appreciating where you're both coming from and giving empathy to each other to kind of find a middle ground, because there's no middle ground in your eyes and there's no middle ground in their eyes. So you're just going to be butting heads the whole time.
Yeah.
So a lot of the time, which I've started to learn now, it's okay, I'm seeing this 6 as a 6, they're seeing it as a 9. How can we stand side by side to see something completely different? And a lot of the time it is trying to work out where we're both standing and how we see things, rather than trying to push our point across.
You're absolutely right. And I think what's really good to understand is where that actually comes from. So I think for a lot of people, it comes from this feeling of wanting to be good enough, wanting to feel worthy, and therefore wanting to be liked. So it's that thing of me doing things for other people comes from wanting to be liked, and then me wanting to be right comes from being worthy, because we've been taught that not feeling like, we've been taught that if we get things wrong, that we're not it's not a behavior, it's a whole, and because it's a whole, then it means that we are wholly wrong. And so it's that thing of where I just can't allow myself to get things wrong. So I think I've mentioned it before, but I do an Afrobeats class, and he has the instructor has like a choreography class, we'll say it, choreography class on Tuesdays, and I'm thinking about starting to go, but in my mind I'm almost like, well, I almost have to be the best dancer straight away. And he's like, no, just come. Like, there are people that came and they weren't that good to begin with. And yesterday he did a video that he wants us now to take away and then kind of have a look at. And so when we go back to the class, we can practice the steps during the week and then go back to class and be able to do the steps. And I saw myself doing it, saw myself in the video, even though I was right at the back. I saw myself doing it. And when I saw myself doing it, I could see what I was getting wrong, and it wasn't the steps, it was my confidence. And that's what I think it affects when you think that way. You have to have it all right or it's all wrong. It affects your confidence. So then you're always at a level of where, oh my gosh, I have to get it right. Oh my gosh, I have to get it right. Instead of, oh my gosh, I just need to be human. I just need to figure that out. And I think once which I am doing now, allowing myself just to accept the fact that I don't need to have it right. I just need to start. And then in starting, you automatically get better anyway, because it's the practice. And then also knowing that, thinking about it, like he taught us that step probably over a period of 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay.
And so you think about it, you're like, okay, 5 or 10 minutes, but if you don't feel confident, then you may need a little bit more time. I may need a little bit more time. So then I give myself that more time. And then once I get confidence and my confidence grows, then I'm able to accept that, oh, okay, I already know this move. So now I can add to this move and feel confident in it. And so that's where I kind of am with things. And I think that's where a lot of people are with things, is that we feel like because we're not going to get it right straight away, we don't start going to that lesson. We don't start allowing our ourselves to be, really, whether it's in relationships with other people, and all types of relationships with other people,
Yeah.
or just doing something new. Like, I'm going to stay in a job, for example, that I've been in because I know what it is here, as
Yeah.
opposed to having to start again and having to kind of embrace a whole new way of doing things, instead of, and just understanding that everything happens over a period of time, and allowing ourselves, when we allow ourselves the space and grace to be able to grow into that space, because that's the whole point, really, isn't it? Is that we're supposed to grow into the space. That's what makes us as human beings, that we constantly want to grow, we constantly want to learn. And it's when we don't grow and we don't learn that we feel like we feel small, because we're not allowing ourselves to be our full selves. We're just kind of inhabit. It's like walking into a room and even though you can inhabit the whole room, you only just inhabit a corner of the room, but you're looking at the rest of the room like, I've got all this space, but you're just not taking advantage of it. So
yeah, it's true. When you start to see things from the grayer areas, I think, one, there's grace, and also two, there's growth. There's so much growth in that area, because when you start to accept that, yes, you've done this way for a certain amount of time, and now you're changing things, you have another way of doing something. It's not just one way. It's not just the white way or the right way. It's more, oh, so this can be done in other ways, and I can experiment with this and be creative with it as well, because it gives you room to, when you try it once, you've given yourself permission to try it as many times as you want now. You've given yourself the room to move around in that room and move around in that space. And the more you do it, the more confidence you build in that. And I think the right way is only a way to make sure that something is done that feels comfortable for you. But sometimes stepping out of that comfort zone can give you even more confidence and more competence in that area, because now you've figured out another way to do it. So when someone tries to question even your way, you have another way to back it up, or you have another way to see things in a different light, which is beneficial for everyone, not just you. And I think when we do start to open that up, it gives us room to breathe, and we can let go of things a lot easier when it's not the right way or the right way.
That's very, very, very true. What I will say is that one thing that you said there, which is and it's a term that I learned a few years back that I really love, is competent confidence. And it's almost, it's like the learning how to drive theory, where in the beginning you're aware that you don't know, so you're aware of being incompetent, and then you go to the place where you're so competent, you're not even aware of how you don't even think about, okay, I need to go into this lane now. You don't think, okay, because to go into this lane, I need to check my mirrors, I need to indicate, I need to check my mirrors again, and then go into that lane. You just make sure the lane is clear and then go to that lane, but because you're so used to doing it. But initially you had to be aware of all these things, have all of this awareness in order to be able to do it. And so when you become competent in it, you become confident. And there's so many things that we do on a daily basis anyway that we don't even think about. And it's kind of reflecting on those things as opposed to thinking about the things that we're not doing right. And I think once we do that, you definitely start to move into a space of, from black and white thinking into the whole spectrum of the rainbow, the whole spectrum of color, and just really embracing not only ourselves with grace and love and compassion, but also others with the same grace, love and compassion, and just continue to grow to be are very best selves. And yeah, and that's it for the this episode, guys. Like, thank you for listening. So as always, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Would love to hear what your thoughts are around this topic of black and white thinking. And with that, I shall see you on the next one. Take care. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. For more about me, what I do, check out my website, nextlevelcoachinggroup.com, where you can also download my free Release Your Mindset Blocks guide. You can also follow me on Instagram at Next Level Coaching Group or on Facebook at Next Level Lounge. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave me a rating and review. Thanks. See you on the next one.